Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. As always, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of today's event, just know you'll be able to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate, just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions. And we'll get to as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. And also at the end of today's webinar, we are going to be doing a drawing for 3 $50 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 3 lucky winners. Okay, with that, we will kick off today's webinar, which is Accelerate and Modernize Enterprise Application Development and Digital Process Automation using Joget and Red Hat OpenShift. Our speakers today are Ravish Dewan, who is CEO of Joget, and Hugo Lim, who is co-founder at Joget. They're going to be speaking today, but before we get them on the webinar, I do want to introduce Mike Waite, who is the Director of Partner Marketing at Red Hat, and he's going to get us started with a couple opening words. Mike?
Hey, thanks for that. Is my microphone working okay? Can you hear me?
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay, great. I wanted to chime in here because I know there's a whole bunch of people that have signed up for this webinar, and there's quite a few here on the call. And I just wanted to make the connection of, what's the relationship between Red Hat and Joget. And, my team at Red Hat works with software companies to test and certify their software on the Red Hat portfolio. Joget has been Red Hat certified for use on Red Hat's products, including Red Hat OpenShift, for quite some time. And so these are the types of things we like to do to help drive visibility in the market for our partners that have Red Hat certified applications and specifically operators for OpenShift. So thought I'd make that connection, and then I will turn it over to Joget, and I will go back on mute.
All right,
Ravish.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Charlene. First of all, welcome everyone. We have a great, piece of information to share with you. And as we walk through the webinar, we will also do a real-time demo. So, if you have some questions, just wait through the demo, and a number of those questions might get answered. And as Charlene said, we are taking questions. So if anyone still has questions, we absolutely will be able to answer those towards the end. So why don't we get started? I am Ravish Dewan. I'm leading Joget and also leading the healthcare, Hyperledger healthcare subgroup. One of my peer is Hugo. Hugo, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. I'm Hugo. I'm the co-founder and the VP of Customer Success at Joget. So thanks for joining the sessions today.
Cool. Thanks, Hugo. So let me just set the context here, because I think it's important to understand, what OpenShift and containers are doing to the market and the industry, and how the industry is shifting as well. So this is a story that I always share, which is really interesting and sets the perspective right. Everyone has heard this story about rabbit and turtle. The rabbit took a break, and turtle, goes till the end and wins the race. And the moral of that story is, slow and steady wins the race. Everyone knows this story. But the story is different a little bit now. If you do this race today, rabbit is not going to wait in the middle. It's going to win the race and then get some rest. Moral of the story, we cannot take old morals at the face value. Similarly, the software engineering lessons that we learned earlier, back in those days, or the traditional application development, it's completely changed now. The game is completely changed. And if you're still following those old waterfall models and regular app dev models, the landscape has completely changed, especially because of some of the new tools, like OpenShift and, low-code platforms like Joget. So just to set the context here, I want to also bring in, why I say the landscape has changed. Our problems have remained essentially the same. If you are talking about IT dream, the first IT dream is I have enough budget to deliver what I want to do. This is something that, is a dream to every IT app dev manager, or director or any leader. The other dream is I have enough resources to deliver what you are asking me to deliver, right? The third, best dream is I have enough time on this earth to deliver the project. These things never happen in any project. You are always short on one or the other, or most probably all of these. And icing on the cake is, I have all the requirements, completed for me. For the project, I have complete requirements, enough time to deliver, enough resources to deliver, and I have enough budget. None of these things happen.
So Ravish,
still a dream.
Can you, sorry,
Go ahead.
Ravish. Yeah. So Ravish, can you share, give an example on how one of our customers, Cisco's, changed their constraints?
Sure. So exact same problems were with one of our clients, Cisco. They had a large project to deliver in a very short period of time and very small amount of resources, and they literally created almost around, I would say, more than 1,000 plus screens and 100 plus workflows within 24 weeks for 4 to 5 people team. So that's an example of following a modern, tools and modern way of application development, if you will. And essentially, the whole game revolves around how can you, change the constraints for yourself. How can I, even if I have these constraints, how can I still move faster? So bottom line is, I want things to be done fast. I want lower cost of ownership, and I want ease of use. I mean, these are the three things common across any organization if you go in an enterprise. That's what they ask for. And in order to do fast from application development standpoint, let's take a step back and look at what does the business application development or enterprise application development release cycle looks like, right? So you start with the requirements, you do the requirements. The requirements are never complete. You have design. You start creating the development environment for yourself and your organization. You develop the application, test it, create the test environment, test it, create the production environment, deploy it, and the application goes live. So everything in green is more of app dev activity. Everything in red is more of infrastructure activities in place. So when I look at these things, what I see is a good amount of time from infrastructure standpoint is creation of these environments and maintaining these environments, right? And rest 80 to 90% is also in business application development. So if you look at infrastructure activities, you can definitely use OpenShift. That is the strength. When you talk about containers and how to move things faster and how to create the environments on demand, that's where really OpenShift helps. And now we're trying to bring Joget in the mix with all these Joget operators and containers to give you an acceleration in the application development space as well. So what it means is, get your infrastructure accelerated with OpenShift and get your application development accelerated with Joget. So that gives you an ability to really move fast, if you will. And essentially, a lot of times the teams struggle, either the development teams is ahead of infrastructure or vice versa. If you go to some of the organizations who are yet not in some of these modern technologies, ability to provision an environment can take even a month time frame. You ask for a dev environment and wait forever. Whereas in modern, way of doing things, I have OpenShift. I can create these things on demand. That's where the value comes into picture. Now the question is, how do I bring this OpenShift and Joget together to accelerate the complete lifecycle of application development. This is where I think the demo will help you understand how I can bring these two things together. Let's go into the demo and then, talk through how what is Joget and how it can help. But I think the first thing to see is important is how quickly you will go from no infrastructure to, really having, a business application in next 10, 15 minutes. So I will give it over to Hugo. Hugo, take it over and, take us through, using the OpenShift, starting from OpenShift all the way to business application development and releasing that application.
Sure. Thank you. So let me show my screen. Right. So we are now on a OpenShift platform right now. So what I'm going to do is to let me just very quickly show you. I'm gonna start from scratch, meaning to say I'm gonna create a project, and let's say that we name the project as creative. So we're starting on the clean slate here, right? Whereby you will be seeing that in the workload, right, it has nothing, right? So what I'm going to do here is to start to add a Joget operator into this project. So let me just switch to the developer roles and go to, and actually before we do that, there's actually two things that we are going to do today. One is, in order for Joget to run, we would require a database. So there are two things that I'll be adding in from here. So let's just go to the catalog, and first we look for Joget, right? So as simple as it gets, we just need to click on the create button, and again create buttons just to confirm. And as you can see here, we have added Joget to the project name creative that we have just created here, and that's it. So I'm going to go back to add again, right? So, and to also provision a database. So again, with OpenShift, it's just a matter of a few clicks away. So MySQL, for example, instances template, and I'm going to tie it to the creative project. And this is I'll need to punch in some parameters here. For example, this is how the database will be exposed. So this would be the host name that Joget will be connecting through. And let me just keep things simple here, right? And set the username to Joget, password to Joget, root password to Joget again, and the database name, let's call it JWDB, Joget Workflow Database. And we can also specify the versions of database here. For example, I can set to 5.7, right? And verify all the info. And that's it. Click on create. Okay, all right. So once we are done with that, we can then go back to the administrator panel here and click into our project creative. So in here, there should be some events on the right. Yes, that's what we can see here. And let's see, we can click on workload. And you can see there are two workload added in. So if I click into one of the MySQL pods, right? So this will get a little bit technical here. If I want to get to know on what's happening to the MySQL that I just deploy, right? For example, I can go to the logs, and I would be seeing this message that says that it is ready for connections, right? Means that it is now ready, right, for me to connect to. So let me just go back to the project again and check the state of Joget. So again, workload, and example. And so what happens here is that in the Joget operators, it would be apart from provisioning Joget itself into the web application servers, you will also expose the service, right, so that it will be accessible. And you will also be creating a route so that we would be able to access it once it is ready. So let me just try to click into it and see if it's already up. There we go, right? So we will need to go through the initial database setup because we are starting from an empty database. So this is the connections name that I have declared earlier, MySQL, and the database name is JWDB, and the user is Joget and Joget. So what happens here is that you will provision the database and to also include a sample apps and sample org-chart users into it. So let me just go ahead and click save.
So essentially, Hugo, just to summarize, what has happened so far is you started with no server, you created a database pod and a Joget pod, and now you have everything up and running.
Yep. So if I want to, I can see what happens behind the scenes, right? So it will say that it is initializing, and it will say database setup is completed. And there we go. And this would be the default administrator login to my very own copy of Joget workflows, just under 5 minutes. There we go. All right. Should I hand it back to you, Ravish?
So yeah, just you, I think what is important to understand here is for everyone that we went from, we had OpenShift, installation, and from there we took the image from the container repositories like MySQL and Joget, which are already there, and you created the pod for database, you created the pod for Joget, and you connected those, and you have the Joget platform up and running on OpenShift now. So now the next milestone is to create quickly create a business application, which will now be running in this Joget instance.
Sure. All right. So let me just log in as the admin, right? And go ahead with creating a new applications on the Joget platform. So let me just call it as a okay, let's call it sample. Right. And let me go ahead creating a new form, and I'll be calling it as a request form. Click save. And you will open up in a new in its form builders, depending on the entity that we are creating here. So in a drag and drop fashions, so I can start to build the application form. So for example, in a request form, I will ask for the name, right? And say, for example, I would like to make it a mandatory fields. And let me try a text area again in a drag and drop fashions. Reason to apply, right? And maybe a date picker, right? Request date, for example. Right, so if I want to, I can go into the advanced options and start to dictate the fine details. So not just no code, you can also do a little bit of low code, right? For example, for power users want to dictate on how it should look like, the data storage format wise and display format wise. So there we go. So you can just click on the preview and see if it works. Okay. And save the forms. And that's it. So once we have the form, right, the form would be the centerpiece, the basis of our building blocks here. We have what we call as the app generator. So on the top right, we can just click on it and it says that please make a CIUD, a CRUD, or a approval process out of this form. And Joget will be performing as what we have chosen here. And what happened next is that we would, apart from the only forms that we have created earlier, right, we will have a series of forms, lists, user view, and even the process, right, to complete the piece here. Okay, right. So let me just jump straight into the runtime. So the app has been published, right? So as an end user would be seeing the App Center. So the next time when the end users goes into the App Center and refresh, we will be seeing the new app that we have just published as well. So once we click into it, right, we can start to submit a request. For example, right, and it would be going through the approval cycles as defined by the template earlier on what we can see on the screen here, and it goes on and on. There we go. Ravish, back to you then.
Cool. So let me just take the control, Hugo.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So just wanted to summarize what just happened. What Hugo took you guys through. First was just created a project in OpenShift to start with, and then created a database within that project for Joget to actually connect to. And again, the database that he created is a blank database instance that gets created from the catalog in OpenShift. OpenShift also has the Joget certified container in the repository as well. So he picked up the Joget container and instantiated that. He initialized the Joget container to connect to the database. And then in the end, he created a quick application. So what you just saw from step 1 to step 5 is a journey from no server, nothing, just having OpenShift instance running to a business application being created. So this was just the kind of a summary of how you can go from no infrastructure to building and releasing an application. And this is where really the speed, not just infrastructure, but also creation of business application comes into picture. So when I put OpenShift and Joget together, I am accelerating 100% of the life cycle for a business application or an enterprise application release. So, as I said, I mean, this is where, we feel, so excited when we look at OpenShift and Joget together, that there is an advantage to be on these platforms, because now you're not just talking about, you are completely eliminating all the interdependencies of creation of, server, putting that on network, getting database installed, configured, and then on top of it, plugging in your platform. All that is automated by virtue of the operators and the OpenShift functionality that it brings to you. What it now means is you can spend more value valuable time with the business to really look at the business application and releasing that business application. So this is kind of a completely new way of building applications. You're not just waiting for developers to really develop. A lot of mundane work goes in, putting together a text box, adding validations. I mean, those are not the real business value, things, but those are important to get done. And, when you leverage the platforms like this, you have a few things already tested for you. When you drag and drop and, plug in a box there, it will work because that's something that we provide you from platform standpoint. Moving on to, from looking at the new or modern application development, there are some key things that you will find those themes across the board, right? One is cloud. You want to be cloud ready. When it comes to modern application development, you will learn. Everyone wants to do AI. Everyone, from a business application to IoTs to you name it, everyone wants to embed AI everywhere. So the question is, how can it be easy for platforms like OpenShift and Joget? How can we help you get these things in your application? Agile and DevOps. We talked about building an application, but then this whole agile process of requirements keep changing. How can I keep my adaptability moving on? And DevOps is more of a continuum for what you are doing in application development, right from development to operations and back to development. I mean, this is where some of these platform level things really help you and bring value to you. And obviously containers. It is very easy when I have containerized my application, on OpenShift platform, then which cloud you are talking about does not matter to us, because if we have an OpenShift platform there, you can move your application pretty easily from one container, from cloud A to cloud B to cloud C. It really does not matter. It gives you the complete, flexibility to do that. And especially with the business applications, you can easily do that. Now let's talk about, you saw Joget. What is Joget? I mean, what is a NoCode Local platform? NoCode Local platform is basically a platform to give you an ability to drag and drop and create, your business application or process application for your business. It empowers both coders and non-coders. I mean, a lot of times when we are talking about low-code platform, it is not just you can drag and drop and put that mark there. It is also because you can do that and you don't have to worry about everything that you see behind the scenes from database perspective. We didn't go touch anything in the database to give you the business application. It was just simply drag and drop, which means you are also enabled to work with business directly. You are not just limited to the developer's IDE. It's an IDE that business can also look at and understand what you're doing. And obviously, I mean, you can do things faster. You have speed to market. Overall cost goes down. You are able to increase the efficiency, and there are a lot of cool features like SLA monitoring and deadlines within the application or the process automation that can help you achieve your business goals when it talks about SLAs and timelines. There is actually a lot of research going on from Forrester perspective or Gartner perspective. If you look at some of those, they're just completely saying that the application development will shift towards some of these low-code, no-code platforms. And taking these low-code, no-code platforms on platform like OpenShift, completely accelerates to a different level for you and your organization. So I think a number of times we get this question about low-code, developers. Who are low-code developers? And what are the attributes of low-code developers? Number one, I mean, they understand the business really well, because now when you're dealing with these platforms, you are going to be doing things faster and you want to understand the business, you have to have the business understanding. Obviously confident about their ability, especially because you know the business problems well and you know how to solve them. They really are acting as change agents. A lot of customers who we get are more of experimenters, when it comes to low-code platforms and on their business side as well, not just on technology side. And the reason why they choose these low-code platforms is because they can take their thought process from ideation to a prototype really fast. And something that is tangible is easy to understand from management standpoint as well. And obviously, they're good negotiators.
So Ravish, just to chime in here, there are actually lots of our customers who try our platforms and start to ask. They say that they don't need coders anymore once they have started using low-code platforms like Joget.
Yeah,
so,
good question, Hugo. Go ahead.
So on top of that, also we have another client, Zensa. Can you share with the folks on how their business analysts, we help their business analysts to build AI applications?
Yeah, sure. So let me answer your first question, Hugo. A lot of these questions get answered about if we start using low-code platforms, we don't need any coders. That's not the case. The intent is to accelerate a lot of activities that are around application development. You still need, a lot of integration also can be done with drag and drop features using Joget platform. But you do need developers to extend some of these things that you're doing with Joget, like building a plugin or integration with the APIs that they can, help accelerate. So the developers are really doing the value-added work that developers should be doing, and no code or no non-coders or power users or so-called business analysts are really doing the real business work by leveraging some of these tools. And the example that I think you were asking for is one of our customers built an AI application using Joget. It was take a screenshot of the damaged car and submit it to the AI engine and get the results back from the AI engine. So the business analyst understood the business well, but she was not trained enough to do coding or developing application. She had an idea, and there was an AI engineer who created the model for this. They came together, and the problem came to us. We really helped business analysts to learn a little bit of Joget, and she was able to drag and drop and create the application. And the engineer was there to help tie the AI engine and the screens together through API, and boom, we had an AI app, specially created by the business analyst working with the data scientist. But if you put them together right now in a conventional application development model, it'll take much more time. What I'm talking about took less than a week once they had the AI algorithms in place. It just took less than a week to put this application together.
So yeah, thanks for that. So we will have a low-code citizen developers to do the so-called last mile delivery, and yet we still need developers at the back end to do the heavy lifting, to develop the AI engines and etc. So we still need the developers as well as the citizen developers for faster deliveries of applications.
Yep, absolutely. So the whole intent is how can I accelerate? The whole landscape for the business needs also have changed. And I'll share another piece of research here. This is from Forrester. The same slide was presented at the Forrester digital transformation as well. if you look at, the developers who are in 2 to 5 year range to 11 to 15 years, who have some understanding of business, they have not spent enough time in development, they really amount to be, they can really do things faster, because when you have the power of drag and drop and creating most of the things and tying it up with a little bit with the integration, you can really achieve a lot more in a very short time frame. There is another study that I want to share is, and this is very interesting to me. Forrester did some research across the globe for various developers and coders and non-coders, and found out 20% more likely is to be female. Very interesting fact. Probably the women empowerment is working here. Average 5 year younger than average developer, which means you are enabled much more faster or empowered faster when you leverage some of these tools. And the third point is even more interesting, more likely to work in an administrative department. We digged in out, why is that so? One of the reasons is most of the companies, the administrative department has the least amount of money to do what they're asked to do. And either they have all these manual processes, or they are the ones who really leverage these platforms to get their work done, because they have the least amount of money, least amount of time, and least amount of IT support also. So this is where really, it shows when I can operate in a much more constrained environment, a rich environment will help us achieve much more than, a constrained environment. And this is how you actually change your constraints in a rich environment. When you are also constrained from business needs, you can shift the thought process by leveraging some of these modern tools to get to deliver faster, accelerate and modernize your application development. And when you are using, OpenShift and Joget, you are already cloud ready. You don't have to worry about the cloud anymore, because you can, at an OpenShift level and at a Joget level, you can go from one environment to another environment as a whole, as containers. So that makes things a lot more easier and a lot more different when it comes to new application development. And I just wanted to share a story here again. This is another interesting one to talk about. When I say environment has changed, this is a picture that really shows. You can see there is a bridge in the middle of nowhere near the river, and the story goes, and this Hurricane Mitch in Honduras back in 1998, a lot of rainfall, and what happened was, after the storm, hurricane was over, the river changed its path. So what was left was only this bridge. The roads were washed away. Everything was washed away. So the interesting fact is, the bridge was a masterpiece. It stood that, wild hurricane. But guess what? Your engineering, even though it was a masterpiece, the environment completely changed. The river changed its path. So you have to be ready for this kind of a new environment. And a lot of things in business do this to you. Some new innovation comes in and your whole business model changes. And now you are constrained. How can I speed up and get my development done and release this other new version when the environment is completely changed on your needs? This is where we strongly believe modern technologies like OpenShift, Joget can help you accelerate your things much faster and not be in this situation as it stands today. So that's a very simple analogy when I say environment changes. You might be doing all the right things, but you can find yourself in a situation wherein you are halfway through the project, the landscape changed, and you have to build a whole new application. How will you switch faster? This is where platforms, low-code platforms help. Moving on to some key things while adopting these platforms. There is a screen that you saw. You can build the screens. You can build processes. Again, all these by drag and drop. You can create reports and views. Again, by drag and drop. And you can create stitch all these things together with the a navigation builder or a user view builder. I also want to talk about some key things in like integration. Integration is a must. Anything you do, whether it's OpenShift, Joget, or anything else, whatever you are building, it has to be integrated with something else. And these things are kept, very core to some of the platforms like Joget. Is anything you build in Joget creates the API for exposing that functionality, whether it's a form or it's a report or it's a process. You can call the API. You don't have to create the backend for creation of the API. It comes out of the box. When you drag and drop and create a form, it has created an API to access the data for you as well. Similarly, on number of other things like just like integration, we talk about security. Security is a must. Joget has a 45 5-star rating. We don't release the product till it's certified, and certification on OpenShift as working as a container on OpenShift. Again, there is another certification that we had to go through from OpenShift standpoint for making sure Joget container works on OpenShift. So you have some of these things baked in when you start using these platforms. Just as an example, Hyperledger Fabric, we have Joget has an integration with blockchain. Again, drag and drop features to help start creating blockchain applications. AI, I talked about AI. There is an integration with TensorFlow. In fact, towards the end of the presentation, we have some links to share with you. One of the link is there is a blog on OpenShift website that talks about OpenShift, Joget, and TensorFlow. How you can create applications using OpenShift, Joget, and TensorFlow really fast. And there is an example that you can see. Just follow the tutorial, and you will be able to try this out in your organization. Monitoring. OpenShift comes with a lot of monitoring tools in place. Even Joget comes with monitoring in place. Any application you build with Joget, you have two different ways to analyze it. There is a performance analyzer, which is at design time when you're designing the application. You can enable that and see what the response times for various screen elements are. And second is runtime, wherein in production, it captures information about what your response times are, what your transaction response times are, things like that, and enable you for, kind of a full view of, from monitoring standpoint, how your application is doing, how your container is doing from OpenShift standpoint. And, just to quickly sum up the key things, when you are working on some of these container platforms and application build out in Joget, you are getting ready for future, because that's something that we are worrying about from platform standpoint, both from OpenShift standpoint as well as Joget standpoint. So anything you build in Joget, DX, it's all progressive web apps. You get to leverage the notification. I talked about DevOps and integration with the DevOps tools. So Joget comes with built-in integration with Git. Anything you are developing in Joget can be put into your Git repository from Joget console itself, and that way you are kind of maintaining all your code that is getting generated using low-code platform. You don't have to look at it, but it just goes into Git, and you can use those DevOps tools like Jenkins and all to deploy the application in various environments. Application monitoring I talked about, both runtime and performance management, and there are plenty of other things that you can monitor within OpenShift containers using a number of other partners who are in their ecosystem. And AI and smart decisions, again, this is something that is baked into Joget functionality. I mean, you have ability to configure leveraging a TensorFlow model, or you can create these smart decisions, simple decisions by virtue of just configuring within Joget application, Joget platform, while you're building the application. I think we are getting towards the end. So these are some of the key, articles that you can go through on OpenShift website, on Medium or HackerNoon, some on our blogs as well. How to develop an application in Joget and OpenShift, how to visually do that. Most of the part is visual. So if you are, once you get an understanding of OpenShift and operators, it's literally, you don't have to look at any other screens other than just clicking those buttons, and the environment is up and running, and then you log in the environment just like Hugo did, and kind of went through build out of the business application. I think that's all we had to cover. We are absolutely open for questions. Charlene, if there are any questions, we'll take those.
We have gotten a lot of questions in, but there is time. If you have a question, please go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your question. And let's just go ahead and dive right on in. First question here, can Joget work in private cloud data center, or do I need a public cloud infrastructure?
Excellent question, actually, and this goes for both OpenShift and Joget. Joget can work in any environment, private cloud, public cloud, AWS, Azure, anywhere. And you can do it in-house or on-prem or on cloud.
All right, great. Next question, does Joget support integrating with enterprise systems such as ERP or CRMs?
Yeah, plenty of integration exists, and it's pretty simple to integrate with Joget. If you just Google Joget and integration, you will get plenty of articles around how to integrate your Joget, with whether it's ERP, CRM. You can fetch the data from there. You can pull the data from Joget into those apps or into those ERPs as well.
All right, excellent. So many good questions. Here's another one. Since applications are developed without putting in efforts of infrastructure, how do we ensure the security of the data stored in these applications?
Excellent question. So when I look at OpenShift, if you saw the demo, we created the database. The database exists, but there is another level of security from Joget standpoint. Any data that you are creating in Joget, you can configure at a field level what you want encrypted or not. So that's another thing that you can leverage. And again, with the limited time, we can only do a few things, but definitely, there is plenty of information around that. The data gets secured, the database gets secured based on the platform. This is where OpenShift, security comes into picture. And if you're running that in a container in OpenShift, that's where you can do it. And if you're running outside the container, that's something, database security, which is security one-on-one from DBA's perspective. But yes, it's a good question.
Okay, all right, great. Let's see, next question. Can you provide an example of a complex enterprise application that was developed on Joget?
Yeah, so I just talked about an example, and I'll just bring it back. Cisco is one of the users of Joget. They created completely service system for their organization, for one of the service offerings that they have. There were like more than 100 plus different workflows in there, and more than 1,000 screens. They have a lot of products, and each product demanded different kind of data. So they created this 1,000 plus screens and 200 plus, 100 plus workflows in less than 24 weeks. And that was just for 4 or 5 people team. We have customers who have created like more than, I would say, 118 different applications to run their whole business on. And this is not, I'm just not talking about smaller organizations. These are multi-billion-dollar organizations that are using it.
Excellent. All right, great. Next question. Have you used any CICD pipelines with this platform?
We, as I said earlier, you can use any of the CICD pipelines like Jenkins. You can use Jenkins. Everything in Joget is a JSON. Even the form is in form of a JSON. So what happens is it just gets checked into your Git repository, and you can build your regular CI/CD pipeline for taking the app and deploying it in another environment. It comes with that. The other way to think about this is you really need not worry about all those pieces. Joget also gives you a functionality to export the whole app and import the whole app in another environment. It's just like exporting a container and importing a container in another environment. So there are these, you can do it at a container level or at an app level also. So you have both that flexibility.
Excellent. Okay, great. Next question. If I make an application on Joget, could I change it later even if I'm no longer a customer of Joget? Does the generated code use any Joget specific APIs or methods?
Yeah, excellent question. And Joget is a platform, so you will need Joget platform to continue to use the application and change the application. Just like I have a container. Container needs the container platform to run on it. That's how Joget runs. App runs within Joget as a platform. So you do need that. A lot of our customers ask this question: will I be tied into this? Technology is changing so fast that you just don't have time to redo these things. Or chances are, by the time you want to move from Joget to something else, the technology platform might have changed. And that's something that we are also aggressively working towards. We don't want you to be in that same, shell all the time. This is where we are bringing in all the new pieces like PWA. So you don't have to worry about those things. That will be kind of baked into your platform. So then it becomes easier for you to must focus on the business applications rather than, moving from one technology to another technology.
All right, great. We're about 8 minutes to the top of the hour, so I think we have time for a couple more questions. Next one, can Joget support creation of business process workflow in addition to application workflow?
Yes, it does. I wish I could quickly show that. Maybe towards the end, if we have a minute, we can definitely share that. Just like you saw drag and drop features for creating the screens, you can do the exact same thing for workflows. Hugo did not go through creation of the workflow. We just took a template and applied to the form. But you can create your own workflows with different SLAs, different tasks, and attach those screens to those tasks, and you can get a complete complicated business application, around your flow. Now, the simplicity is the key as well. While you see these things are drag and drop, it appears very simple. There is a lot going behind the scenes, which are kind of shielded from you as a no-code developer. So you can do things fast and focus on real business problems.
All right, great. Our next question is Joget compatible with OpenShift only?
No, you can run Joget on a simple Docker container as well. You can, as I said, you can run it on AWS machine. You can run it on Azure. You can run it on any of the platforms, any of the on-prem, VMs. You can run it any way you want it. It is available in all, modes. OpenShift just gives you an ability to accelerate it on a very different level then. Because of the provisioning and we being certified on OpenShift and having an operator hides behind everything, to configure Joget on OpenShift.
Okay. All right, great. I think we have time for one or two more questions here. Next question, what's helped customers make the biggest impact with adopting Joget? Is it best to already have a DevSecOps culture in place before?
I think what is happening is the technology application development is changing from multiple perspectives. There is DevSecOps, then there is this low-code platforms. Essentially, all these are driving towards how can I do things faster. And when you look at this overall thought process, you will worry less about your whole DevOps model because it's already baked into the platform. And now you are in a process of doing things much faster than earlier. You want to make a change to the application, it's much more faster. Drag and drop, configure, and you are there. having a discipline in there. If you look at DevSecOps, that is completely, methodology that only developers are, kind of following. When I say only developers, I'm talking about hardcore developers. Obviously, the organization as a whole, business does align with that. But here, you are turning this equation upside down. That all the other things around DevSecOps is happening within the platform. Now I'm focusing on building the application only. It just accelerates your application development lifecycle.
All right. Okay. Well, we are about 5 minutes to the top of the hour, so we may have time for one more question, and then we're going to have to close it out. So here it is. Can Joget integrate with legacy apps residing on mainframe, SAP, etc.?
Yeah. So Joget does not have a direct integration with mainframe, but a number of our clients have exposed those mainframe modules as web services. As long as there is an API, Joget can integrate with it. Good news is we are open source. Joget is an open source as well, and you can create your own plugins in Joget. And one of them can be, if you have very specific files on mainframe, create a plugin and then reuse that plugin across all different applications that you are creating on Joget. So that's the beauty of, when I said, where do you need a developer? This is where you need a developer to write a plugin in Joget that gives you level of acceleration in custom things also.
All right, great. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for the question and answer period of today's webinar. But please note, if we did not get to your question, the folks at Joget and OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift, will be getting a copy of all of the questions. So I'm sure somebody from the organizations will be more than happy to follow up with you offline. And before we actually close things out, I know that Michael wanted to come back on and say a few words about the upcoming KubeCon conference. So Michael, you with us?
I am. I've just gone off mute. I was going to say that we are going to be at the RAI Convention Center in Amsterdam at KubeCon, which is starting on 30th of March. We're going to be there all week. Joget's going to be there all week, and whole bunch of our other software partners, all building operators for OpenShift, will be there. So if anyone wants to come and talk with technical subject matter experts, I can make connections with just about anyone that you want inside Red Hat or with any of our partners for that matter. So stop on by. I'm 6'9". I'm easy to find. I'll be there in the booth.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that, Michael. Appreciate it. Want to remind the audience real quick that before we close things out, that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to listen to it again later on. We are going to be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the devops.com website, so you can always go find it there. Just go to devops.com/webinars, look in the on demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Also, I know that I promised at the top of the hour that we'd be doing a drawing for 3 $50 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and do that now? Our first winner is Danella A. Congratulations, Danella. Second winner is Eric C. Congratulations, Eric. And our third and final winner is Kim P. Congratulations to all three of you. We will be contacting you via email to get those $50 Amazon gift cards to you. Guys, I think we are nearing the end of the webinar here today. I do want to thank Ravish and Hugo for such a great presentation. Lots of good stuff, especially enjoy the demos. And judging from the number of questions we got in, and it looks like the audience got a lot out of it too. So thank you both, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you.
if you need any information, you can go to these links and get more information. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody.